There are only a few truly noteworthy cartoon crossovers, so I'm sure you expect me to talk about the fated Jimmy Timmy Power Hour in this video. Because after all, it was the ultimate combination of two Nickelodeon worlds. It blended two-dimensional and three-dimensional animation, it mixed science and magic, and it brought two great heroes together to work as one. Jimmy Neutron, boy genius, and Timmy Turner, the kid who's best at making wishes or whatever. I think they'd be fun to talk about. You can never really go wrong with Nick cartoons. But this particular video is not about either of them. I want to get personal for a little bit. I want to talk about the most important cartoon crossover in my life, and it works out that it is related to a familiar black duck from a far-off future century. Yeah, this one will get all the views. When I rewatched Duck Dodgers for the worst episode video, I thought there would be at least a few episodes I completely forgot about from my youth, but I remembered every one of them. And one in particular stood out as very formative of my early years. It was one of the last episodes, In Space No One Can Hear You Rock. In this one, the Martians hold up the galaxy with a Saxoblivion, a device that replaces all music with easy listening jazz, making everyone too relaxed to put up a fight. So, to combat the new threat, Dodgers informed IQ and the Cadet that no one rocks louder, faster, and harder than Dave Mustaine of Megadeth, and that he is the best weapon they have against the Saxoblivion. Good thing he was frozen in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But they thawed the metal legend in a microwave, frying his memories of his past. So they spend the whole episode reminding Dave who he is, trying to get him ready to blow the Saxoblivion out of space. It wasn't until the end that I really started to pay attention, because once Dave remembered, the concert started. The band kicked into Back in the Day, a track from their 10th studio album, The System Has Failed. I was transfixed. I wanted to know Megadeth, so I hopped on my living room desktop and searched for Megadeth on YouTube. At the time, in-game had recently been released, so the second ever Megadeth song I heard was Head Crusher. It hooked me, and it wasn't a bad song to listen to on repeat. So why does this particular life-changing episode exist? Well, it's because Season 3 was the victory lap. They got to bring in a bunch of big names from Tim Curry to Quentin Tarantino and rehash familiar ideas as well as make new ones. Dave Mustaine must have been up there on the must-get list because his episode is reliant on his character and he plays himself. He is the headlining celebrity. And now, with only the information I remember from watching Behind the Music, reading a heavy metal memoir, and some other stuff I absorbed through osmosis, I'm gonna tell you why. The episode features the song Back in the Day and plays through most of it with only a few edits. I love Back in the Day, but let's face it, it ain't Holy Wars, that ain't Peace Sells, but it's still the featured song. This is definitely a marketing push because that's what crossovers are. Crossovers are meant to promote cross-pollination. Duck Dodgers gets all the Megadeth fans that want to see Dave on TV, and Megadeth gets to promote their new album on Duck Dodgers. And since the song from The System Has Failed was chosen, that means it was the latest album to come out when the episode was made. So that also means that Megadeth had been quiet for a while since Dave dissolved the band after the previous album, The World Needs a Hero. He went to rehab and all that jazz and ended up injuring his arm pretty severely, on a chair of all things. You should check out his story, it's really quite interesting, even if you aren't a fan of Megadeth. But take all this, Dave Mustaine coming back with a new Megadeth album after the band broke up, after he suffered an arm injury, and after there hadn't been a new album in some years, and you have him agreeing to do an episode of Duck Dodgers, in which Megadeth is featured quite prominently and very positively. It's simple math. In Space No One Can Hear You Rock is my most important cartoon crossover. This single Dave Mustaine cameo in Duck Dodgers was enough to guide the course of my life, because this little bit of influence piqued my interest in playing guitar, a defining factor of my identity. But I was a little black boy going to a public middle school at the time, so there weren't a lot of options for me to learn from a real teacher. I made up for this by playing Rock Band on Xbox, expert of course, and by buying all of Megadeth's albums on iTunes and listening to them chronologically. Killing Is My Business wasn't actually available on iTunes at the time, so I didn't hear any of those songs until I bought a physical CD a little bit later. Yeah, a CD. I had to catch up, but that didn't dampen my immediate love for Megadeth. It definitely didn't stop me from arguing with all my metal-listening friends that Megadeth was better than Metallica. It's an argument as old as time that I've thankfully put to rest and not talked about in many years. One stance in particular that I had to deal with was that Megadeth overused distortion in their songs and Metallica was diverse and worldly. I'd offhandedly mention a lot of Kirk Hammett's long solos being heavily saturated with Crybaby pedal, and so it spiraled. It was like a weekly conversation that went on for a good 2 years. It was fun though. gave me something to do. I have a bit of a hyper-focused quality when it comes to things I'm interested in. I consciously limit what I dabble in because I know that I have to go elbows deep. I've listened to every bit of music Regina Spektor's put out. She's my go-to. I play video games on the hardest difficulty and 100% them. I've seen Bob's Burgers an inordinate number of times, all the way through. I own all 9 seasons digitally. And I own all of Megadeth's albums. It's practically all I listened to in high school. I am this way because of Megadeth. Because of one Duck Dodgers episode, I picked a guitar class my first year of high school. I learned I had an affinity for guitar and joined my school's band. Without Duck Dodgers, I would have never performed in front of a live audience. I would have never played music in China and climbed the steps of the Great Wall. I wouldn't have met a lot of the people I know under the same circumstances. It's really crazy to think about it. I can trace a substantial amount of my life back to a singular experience. I'm sure it's the same for a lot of people. I like going down the rabbit hole and figuring out what wouldn't have happened if I turned left instead of right, you know? I appreciate my past. And I appreciate you indulging my short stroll down memory lane. Do you have any life experiences you can trace back to something you watched on TV? You know, it doesn't even have to be TV really, it can be anything. I love to hear stories about the threads people's lives follow. Tell us your tale down in the comments. And maybe chat about some other cartoon crossovers because that is what this video is about, I think. And for more videos kinda like it, subscribe to Stunt Club Soda and keep coming back for those uploads.